All right, good morning, everyone. I just want to start off just by asking a quick question just to gain an understanding of the room. How many of you have snowboarded or ever know a friend who does snowboard? Okay, so a couple of you. So yeah, just like some of you, I've been snowboarding for 17 years, so since I was roughly 3 years old. And I had a lot of fun snowboarding, but I never really saw snowboarding as a potential business opportunity until I attended the University of Iowa. And just 2 short years ago, when I was a freshman, I wasn't a business major. I was actually a biochemistry major, planning to go to med school to hopefully become a physician. And through my courses, I had a little extra credit, so I ended up taking one entrepreneurship class. And in that class, there was a project where we had to get into groups and essentially find a problem in our lives and come up with a business and a solution to hopefully solve that problem. And so through some thinking, I was going back through my couple days and was thinking back to snowboarding, and there's one specific problem in snowboarding that many of you may have faced if you go out to the mountains. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, I'll present this to my group and see how they think of it. And so that's what I did, and through the course of the class, we presented it, made a business plan for it, and I never really thought much of it more than just a class project until we presented to the class, and the professor at that time asked me if I wanted to actually move forward on this. And I was like, yeah, you know what, I don't really know much about business, so I don't know how this is going to go, but I decided to just give it a try and see how things went. So he invited me to come to the summer incubator last summer, and that's kind of when I started my whole Arblu company and the journey that it has been. And through the past couple of years, through the past year, I've just been raising money and capital through various pitch competitions to kind of move this idea forward. And so what this problem actually is stems from a term called catwalks, and sometimes it's referred to as cat tracks. And essentially what it is are long, flat terrain that can be found on almost every single mountain across the world. And those of you who aren't aware of, or I guess knowledgeable of snowboarding, snowboarders are usually connected, or most of the time always connected to one snowboard. And unlike skiers, they don't really have the flexibility to move around. And so when we come across these flat areas after coming down a big hill using gravity and having a lot of fun, we end up coming across these flat areas that connect the two slopes. And because we're connected to that one board, we start to slow down if we don't know the terrain, and eventually stopping with a couple hundred yards left to go, because usually these flat areas are long. And unlike skiers, we stop and we have to do a couple of different various things just to try and get to a place where we can actually snowboard. And these things could include unbuckling one of our snowboard boots and doing awkward shuffles that, especially if you're a beginner, it can be pretty injury. It can result in some injury if you don't know how to do it properly. And if you have a friend who snowboards, you might be able to grab onto them and kind of maintain some of that momentum. And obviously, if there's a skier that you know that's obviously a little bit smarter than you and chose to ski, they might be able to push you or pull you along. And so at the end of the day, us snowboarders become hazards for everyone else on the mountain who knows these flat areas are here to try and avoid while we're putting our boots on and walking in the altitude and everything else. So I did a little bit further research when I started talking to people and realized this wasn't just a problem for myself. And what I found was there's actually roughly 70% of first-time snowboarders that come in their first time trying it that don't go back the next year. This is due to being discouraged from falling on their butt too many times or actually becoming injured through the unbalance that it is to try and maintain your upright and your awkward position that is snowboarding. And so I did a little bit more customer discovery, and I started talking to people, and a lot of things that came up were talking about how annoying the task is and tedious, and it eventually just leads to them walking or doing any of those various different things that I talked about to try and get to the other side of these flat areas. And so what I found through a wider scope of my customer discovery was my 2 main segments of snowboarders. This would be the beginner who doesn't know how to snowboard. Like I said, they're just getting started. They fall a lot, and so they need that balance that they don't have. And then the intermediate level snowboarders are the people that are just on vacation going to mountains like in Colorado, and they don't really know the terrain, so they end up becoming susceptible to these flat areas as well. And those 2 types make up for just over 22 million snowboarders in the world. And so I did a little research into the competition in this space, and there wasn't really anything. A couple years ago, there actually was a snowboarding product that kind of have tried to solve this problem for snowboarders, but what they did is just added a more inconvenienced way of doing things because they put the product on the board and it just wasn't convenient for any snowboarder. And so really all there is just ski poles. And where all these other ski poles fall short, and what my company Arblu will address, is their important lack of ability to be stored. So like the folding pole where you manually fold it and the manually extending pole, you can't really store it unless you have an excess backpack. And then there's the generic pole, which obviously would be hard to put into a backpack. So what my product will be is a telescoping pole that snowboarders can use when it's extended to maintain their balance and keep their momentum on all aspects of the mountain. And because no snowboarder actually wants to hold on to a regular pole all day long, or else they use one of the competitions, our product will be able to store conveniently and comfortably in a harness that can be found on your thigh or your forearm. So when you come across these flat areas, you can quickly unsnap it and maintain your momentum and keep up your speed. And then when you get past these flat areas into another slope, you can quickly put it away and not have to worry about it the rest of the day. So just a couple different things before I wrap up. How I plan to get into the market and get to the customers is through a couple different ways. First would be through retail, specifically rental shops at the ski resorts where all these, my target market will be found, and then also just the local snowboard shops around the ski resorts as well. We'll also have a website where we'll sell directly to the consumer, which will also be the landing page to our endorsements and social media that we do through influencers. So like I said, I've been pitching for money to fund my prototype and testing phases for the past year or so, and then once we actually have the prototype tested and have a good working concept, I'm going to roll out a Kickstarter where I can gain pre-orders and funding for our manufacturing and distribution costs. And so real quick, the market size, you might be wondering, well, how many snowboarders are there actually in the world? Just in the United States, there's a little over 8 million snowboarders, but there's way more outside the United States. In Europe, there's a little over 21 million in that whole continent. And those numbers are growing, and what's also growing is the market value of the snowboarding accessories, which is growing at 3.8% each year, and then by the year 2026, it'll be $372 million that will be expected to spend in this market. So yeah, because I've been snowboarding for so long, I've not only realized this to be a problem for myself, but many other snowboarders across the globe, and this is why I'm super confident that through Arblu, we can help snowboarders continue to push themselves forward and not be stuck walking in places where they should be snowboarding. So yeah, I'll open up questions if you have any, and thanks for coming.
All right, questions?
I don't know if you answered this, I don't remember hearing it. Have you started exploring manufacturing of these devices?
Yep, a little bit. I'm more focused on the actual making it, just so I can see how far I can go with how many people like it and stuff. But I have looked into both domestic and foreign manufacturing plants, but it is really determined on how much it will actually cost and what materials I need. So it's kind of just like a guess right now, but yeah, I have looked at it a little bit. Yeah.
Is there a relevance to the name Arblu? Does that mean something related to snowboarding that people would identify with?
So it's not directly related to snowboarding, but through my last summer actually, I had to come up with a name for the company. So I was kind of scrambling, looking for something to come up with, and where I found myself was on Google Translate, and I typed in the word pole because that's kind of essentially what I'm selling. And I was just going through the different languages to see what would stick out as something that you might remember just because you don't know what it is. And essentially that's the Maltese version of pole. So, and I thought it was short enough and easily understood and fit well with the brand. Yeah.
Do you have a good lawyer right now that has helped you work through copyrights and other legal issues that you need to deal with?
I mean, like, in terms of our branding?
Yes.
So there is no other company in the United States with the name Arblu or anything like that. We do have connections to a law firm through JPEG, and I haven't really got to that point yet, but it is something that I'm looking into because I know once I get into the global market, there are other companies, especially in Italy, that have these types of names, so I would want to protect myself from that. Yeah.
So obviously you were in the program last summer. What have you accomplished since then? It seems like you've done a lot, but kind of want to hear an update.
Yeah, so I've participated in a lot of pitch competitions because it is expensive to make a new product that's you can't really base off of anything existing, so it's costly to kind of iron out the wrinkles, I guess. So I've been in, like I said, various different pitch competitions. I was in Okoboji, won some money in Okoboji. I won $1,000 in Chicago, and then I also went up to Canada and pitched my idea up there, and just various other JPEG organization-based competitions that I was part of, and I got to share my idea and really just make connections of how I could grow and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's just been raising money for this year, and school, obviously.
Are you still going to go to med school, or are you hooked on entrepreneurship?
I'm double majoring right now. I'm kind of holding on to the idea, but I don't know yet. So I'm not totally away from it, but more towards entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Once you get like the first prototype done, how much will like the next few, or like your production cost? Like how much does it cost to make like a pair of ski poles?
Well, hopefully less than the prototype, but yeah. So I feel once I involve the manufacturer within the industrial design process that I'm doing now, we'll be able to figure out what's the best way to not only optimize the manufacturing process for the lowest cost, especially when you get to scale, it becomes a little bit cheaper, but also make it to the design that I want without obviously like cutting short the aesthetics part of it. So hopefully cheaper. Like I said, I haven't really gotten to the materials yet because I'm just now getting into it, but hopefully it comes to I come to know what those are sooner rather than later.
When do you think your prototype will be done?
I want it to be done by August 10th this summer, so
Let's
that's really what I'm.
just touch base when you get close to done, and I can line you up with some potential manufacturers to scout out those costs, because those costs will be really important to
Yeah.
at least identify how you're going to scale from 10 prototypes to get out there all the way up to say 100 or 1,000. What are those cost breaks? It'll be really helpful for you to know to build out your financial model.
Yeah.
You can go to Paul and get a good loan.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, can you spend some words on the exploration phase? When you approached the first time, snowboarders, and what was the idea, what was the reaction, what was, I mean, from a conversation?
Yeah. So snowboarding, I guess, is kind of like golf. It's kind of like a luxury sport. Like, there's a lot of people that travel a lot to the various different mountains, and they don't really like to have cumbersome activities like this kind of flat areas, because you're obviously in elevation, and it's a memorable problem that a lot of snowboarders have because it's so troublesome to get through, just because a lot of the time you're spent just going down slopes and having fun, but then you just come across these flat areas. So it's an easy thing to relate to when you're talking to other snowboarders, and you can just simply ask them what are some of the problems that you have while snowboarding. That was actually one of my main questions that I had for my customer discovery. And almost all the time it was these flat areas or just balancing on the snowboard when you're first learning. And so it was really easy to figure out what the stem of the problem was just in the snowboarding area and amongst most snowboarders. Did that answer your question?
Totally positive reaction.
What's that?
Positive reaction.
Yeah, once I got into the product, they thought it'd be cool just because it wouldn't inhibit their ability to do like tricks and snowboarding and that stuff in general. And also it would solve the problem through maintaining the momentum on the aspects of the snowboard. So yeah, pretty much positive, and obviously it's still an idea, so it wasn't anything tangible they could touch or feel or use. So
How did your idea change during this exploration phase?
So it changed, and I was really focused on the aesthetics of how it would look because I thought that was super important. What I realized is it wasn't as important as I thought it was to most of the snowboarders. A lot of the snowboarders, they just don't want it to kind of they buy the clothes that they really want, and obviously those clothes are pretty expensive. It's snowboarding, so they don't want the product to kind of take the attention away from their outfit. And so what it came to was they just want something sleek that's not gonna distract anyone from their kind of clothing, which I guess is what they value a lot, or what most of them value a lot, which I wasn't aware of because I didn't really think like that, but that's something that I did change, pivot from. So. Yeah.
So I've skied before, enjoy skiing, and I've always looked at snowboarders as something that's interesting. But it seems like snowboarders spend more time horizontal than vertical.
Yeah.
So which is something that I don't think I can ever want to try to do snowboarding because of that aspect. I don't know, you know, does your solution help someone in my you know, fear of being horizontal more often than vertical?
When you say horizontal, do you mean like laying down?
Laying down, you know,
Yeah.
you're up and down, you're taking your board off, you're
Yeah.
up, you know, it's always this up and down thing
Yeah.
with snowboarders.
Yeah, so that's something that my product will strive to help, just because, especially when you're falling down, you don't like being on your butt, so it'll help with your balance. And being a beginner, I've talked to a lot of beginners, and I've been a beginner various different times, but yeah, it'll help with your balance and kind of a sense of stability, because it's kind of like a third leg that isn't attached to the board that you're not used to, especially you're going sideways, and it's just a whole different way of moving. And so, yeah, that's one of the things that my product will help, yep. And I think a big aspect of that would be the education piece of it, of how to use the product in the correct way that will help beginners and intermediates in their different stages of snowboarding. Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, no, one of the question, a suggestion, because I see that you're concentrating a lot on the sector of snowboarding,
Yeah,
but I think the product is also probably useful and in other sectors, so you can look at that because, you know, maybe the value of other sectors are bigger than what
Yeah.
snowboarding is.
yeah.
You know, trekking, hiking, whatever.
Yeah, I've looked into that, and I want to, I like hiking and even skiing. Some people don't even use their poles for skiing, but at least my idea, and you can have a suggestion on this if you want, if you'd like, but it was to establish like just a brand name that's reputable and like has good standing in this snowboarding industry. So then I can branch into like, you know, hiking, like you said, or trekking, or any of those types of things where it's like, and then I can tweak the product a little bit as needed, but they can see that, okay, the basis of this business is reputable in snowboarding, so it won't like fail. But yeah, I've thought a little bit about that.
We have time for maybe one more question. If there are no other questions, I'll ask our final question. What can we as a community do to help you?
Yeah, so I love learning a little bit about everyone's snowboarding experience, so, or even beyond snowboarding, like you said, manufacturing, anything that's going to be in the horizon of my journey, just gaining an understanding and knowledge of different aspects and perspectives to look at things. I love talking to people, so if you're in manufacturing or snowboarding or even design, I'd love to talk to you about my company and products. So.
Excellent.
Reach out.
Excellent. Let's give John a hand. Thanks so much.